All right, everybody, it's the wrap-up of day 2 at our IAAPA expedition. This has been such a great day, hasn't it, Don?
You know, it has, Ryan. We got to spend more time walking the floor today, looking at all the different things that are out there, even going into the arcade section and checking out all the fun that's there. But, we talked about it yesterday. So much to see, so much to do here, and today we were able to explore a lot more of it.
Yeah, we got to run into some old friends and stuff, and we're going to get to that later. But what are some of the things you saw today that you didn't notice yesterday that blew your mind?
I think the one thing that comes to mind is, there's the boat.
The boat.
From the Adventureland Resort, from their boat ride they're going to open. I thought that looked really, really cool.
Yeah, it's a Zamperla ride. It's a boat. It's a water coaster, I believe.
Right.
That's the definition it's falling into. We put up a YouTube short about that. It was one of our first shorts ever. Really kind of took off.
Yeah, that was something coming down here. We had talked about doing those, and we really didn't have a place like this where there's so many of those opportunities to do those. When we're doing the podcast and that it doesn't lend itself to that. But this is the perfect opportunity to introduce that. A lot of fun little clips out there, and we hope you get a chance to see those. And I think you're going to enjoy. That's kind of your first look at a lot of the attractions that are here if you weren't here.
Yeah, I was looking over at one of the shorts that I put up was the reindeer singing.
Yeah,
that was really neat. Really good animatronics singing jingle bells or something, but they looked really cool, and they had penguins. I want to say peacocks.
Singing, yeah.
They weren't peacocks. They were penguins.
Yeah.
They were singing too. So that was very Chuck E. Cheese-like. You had to hit a button to get them to go. That was kind of neat.
As you walk around the floor, Ryan, when you talk about the different events, if you have Halloween events at your park, you have Christmas events at your park, all the different, props and decor and everything that's imaginable. It's here on display on the floor.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. It's the one thing that really kind of blows my mind is every year. Okay, when we discussed this yesterday with the wrap up, but I never knew how much was into this. There's a company that makes the carpet. There's a company that makes the truss structure. There's a company that makes the digital signs. There's a company that makes the rides. But the thing that's blown me away this year, especially having taken the last 2 years off, is that there's been such an expansion. There's a lot of Christmas stuff here because a lot more parks have added Christmas, so that there's a whole section of Christmas trees and fake snow and real snow and all sorts of stuff like that,
Yeah, it's just like I said, it's been fun today exploring the floor a little bit more than we were able to do yesterday, and still have another day left to even see what else is out there.
We do, and one of the highlights of today was we got to visit our friends at Skyline Attractions, and Jeff was being a chatty Cathy, so we didn't get a hold of him, but my old friend Matt Sakel, who's one of their engineers, actually sat down and talked to us. This is what Matt had to say. All right, everybody, it is day 2 of the IAAPA Expo 2022. I'm here with Matt Sakel of Skyline Attractions. He's one of the engineers here. Matt, how long have you been with Skyline?
I've been with Skyline Attractions for about 6 months now.
6 months, so you're a newbie.
I'm pretty fresh, yeah.
Awesome. So day 1, how did it go for you here at IAAPA?
It was crazy busy. I don't think I anticipated how many people were going to be just coming by to talk, but it was a whirlwind my first day here.
Awesome. So the other day, you guys, before IAAPA, announced Trail Runner. It's a new family coaster. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So Trail Runner is our step up from our children's Sketty coaster models. It's a little bit more thrilling, a little bit more dynamic than the Sketty coasters. You can fit 2 adults comfortably side by side with each other, and it should just be customizable to any kind of terrain that you're looking for. And it should just be a nice step up from the children's coaster.
Awesome. Now, one thing that kind of caught people's attention is the new light package you're advertising on the Sketty Bolt coasters. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so every day parks are looking to bring in more people, looking to differentiate themselves a little bit from the competition. So what better way than lighting up the night sky with some lights? And so we developed our Aurora lighting package that can be placed onto our Sketty coaster or our Trail Runner coaster. Just kind of brings some more kinetic energy to your rides.
And when someone comes up to your booth, what are the type of questions that they typically ask you?
Pricing is one thing. It's always, can this fit in my park? Can this work for my space? tell us what's different about your ride compared to some of the other attractions out there, and how can we make this work for our space.
And when you talk about the Trail Runner family coaster, you talk about how does this fit into my park. That looks like you can fit that almost anywhere.
You can. It's going to be customizable to any sort of space that you have. As you can kind of see here, we kind of made this go to the terrain. It hugs the ground really low, so you don't really need to go super fast or super high to get that sense of speed and adrenaline.
Well, the other thing about it too is when you look at the materials and everything like that, it doesn't, it's going to be a ride that, cost-wise, it's going to work for you. You're not going to have a lot of added expense just because you're going up high and everything.
Correct. Very correct.
Are there height limitations or anything like that? Like how high can you go with the Trail Runner?
I think we're trying to aim for something about 50 to 60 feet at its maximum. Yeah. So nothing too crazy, but enough to get everyone in the family on at a thrilling ride.
So just for the sake of those who aren't familiar, Sketty Bowl as well as Trail Runner, what are some of the things that make them different from the average coaster that you can get?
So the main thing I would say is the way that we construct our track. It is a completely weld-free kind of track system that is bolted together using structural rivets. So the biggest thing and the biggest advantage with that is you don't have to do a lot of the inspections that come with things that are welded together. As soon as you introduce a weld into some structural components, you essentially are making a crack. And so those have to be inspected at a very frequent interval, and this frees the park up from having to do anything like that. So that's one of the biggest advantages to our track systems on both these attractions.
Very good looking, very unique looking. That's one thing I like about it from a outside standard. Any final thoughts, Matt, about Skyline, about your experience here, anything like that?
It's been a fantastic first IAAPA here at IAAPA, or with Skylines here for me. I hope you guys come and check out our booth and come see what we have to offer.
What's your booth number?
4415.
4415. He knew it right off the top of his head. So SkylineAttractions.com, I believe, is your website if you want more information.
Yep.
So make sure that you check them out. Awesome. Well, thanks, Matt.
Thank you guys.
See you again soon. All right. Thank you so much.
Matt.
Thank you.
Another person we ran into on the floor today, Brian, was Elizabeth Ringus, president of ACE. She had a lot of information for us, how she became president, a little bit about the club, all the fun things that they do. Here's what she had to say.
Awesome. Hey, we're back. This is day 2 of the IAAPA Expo 2022 with Elizabeth Ringus, who is Madam President of the American Coaster Enthusiasts, the OG, the original, the first coaster enthusiast group. Elizabeth, tell us about your rise to the top of the American Coaster Enthusiasts.
It was something I didn't plan. I really actually came into ACE planning to be a very incognito and just being a member. And I just wanted to get the Beast Walk back. That was my whole point of membership. But I relocated to Virginia, and it became really important to me. I was missing ACE in my life. And so I became the Mid-Atlantic Regional Rep so that I could get some local activities going and have just wonderful opportunities literally fell in my lap with volunteering in ACE, and felt like it was the right time to share my leadership skills with ACE.
Awesome.
Well, talk about ACE for those that aren't familiar with it, that listen to our podcast. What does the club do? When did it start? And how many members? And where are those members?
Yeah, so we have 7,000 members now, and they are spread across 19 countries. And they all just love roller coasters and want to ensure that we're preserving them. But next year, we're going to celebrate our 45th anniversary. We started in 1978, and we cannot wait to celebrate with everybody next year.
Awesome.
Now, if you're familiar with the movie Roller Coaster, that's kind of the springboard which started ACE.
It is. That's exactly where it all started. The 3 wonderful men who got us started met at the filming of a marathon related to the filming of the movie and said, wow, you love it, I love it, we need a club for this. And we had the first Coaster Con at Busch Gardens Williamsburg the following year.
Awesome. So what attracts you? You mentioned you moved out of state and you missed being a part of ACE and so on. Twofold question. One, what do you like about being a member of ACE? And 2, what do you like being about the president of ACE?
So being a member, it's my friends. I mean, we all say it jokingly, we came for the coasters, that it's my friends that I renew my membership for, because some of my closest friends are in this club. I feel like this is the place that I truly get to be my pure, genuine self. That there's no reason I can't be myself. That there's no suburban life. There's no baggage. This is a safe place that everybody just come as you are, be who you are. And that's what I really love, is it's a place that no one cares what kind of crazy idea I have. Hey, let's take a 2-hour drive tonight and go to a park that we've never been to before and drive 2 hours back again. People here respect me when I say, hey, I have a crazy idea. Let's go take a wild road trip, where I think some of my friends that know me as a mom and a professional will be like, that's a really crazy thing to do, to go ride a roller coaster.
Yeah, I remember when I first started riding roller coasters, I thought, is there other people like me? And then one night I'm riding the racer, and there's ace member Marlon Scott. He's in line in front of me. He's got this black satin jacket, big Ace logo on the back. So I asked him, what's this all about? And, through the 20, 30 minutes, whatever it was for us to go through the queue, he told me, where it was based out of, how many members, the magazine, the newsletter, which would come out for it. And back then there wasn't social media, so you had to rely on newsletters and that. But by the time I got off the racer, I was ready to send, the money in for my membership, $10 at that time. But just a wonderful organization. I've really enjoyed, being a member, but also, on the park side, working with Ace, having to come out, being part of different conventions, different events and that. But you're here at IAAPA. What is Ace doing here at IAAPA?
So here it's about networking, connecting, and getting an opportunity to slow down and have a conversation. Because when we pass in the parks, we're all sometimes too busy. We're trying to catch a ride, y'all are working. It's hard to get that time to connect with the parks and manufacturers. So this is a time we all get to stop and say, how can we support each other? How can we create a mutually beneficial relationship? What do you need? And what can we do to support you? And it's wonderful to get that time all week to have the conversations, visit, but also just get to be immersed in the development of roller coasters. I mean, it lets us make sure our heart's in the right place, that we're connected with the industry and we're paying attention and listening to.
Okay, awesome. So you said you've been working in the booth. Have you had time to walk the IAAPA floor? And if so, what have you seen and what have you been excited about?
I have explored a little bit. Most of it was intentional Ace work. I had a few meetings with different individuals to sit down and really have a good, solid conversation with them of what they'd like our relationship to be. Talking to many parks that have come by the booth, we ended up in meetings to talk about what can we do social media wise? How can we support you best? What are we doing that you like? What other ideas are there that y'all have had that we could support and promote and share fun? I mean, that's what our social media is about, is fun. Just getting it out, having a little bit of roller coaster in your day every day, and social media gives you that. So.
Awesome. So, you kind of touched on that, being a member of ACE is about, connecting with your friends with a similar interests and stuff. But if somebody's interested in roller coasters, talk about some of the benefits. I know you guys have like events at parks and stuff and publications. Talk a little bit about that.
So we do. We offer, last year we hosted about 77 events throughout the year. So lots of events all over the country and now across the world. With Ace Europe, our expansion to Ace Europe as a region, they're hosting their own regional events now. So you can go to a 1 or 2 day event that they host, and sometimes they even have a week-long event. We have international trips every other-ish year. COVID has us messed up. But we take a group for 2 weeks overseas. We have amazing publications. Roller Coaster Magazine is one of my favorites. It's just so beautiful. I look forward to open that envelope and see what beautiful coaster is going to be on the cover. Great articles, so much talent. We have a Discord channel that's exclusive for our members so that they can have queue-line conversations with anybody they meet up with any day, anytime. There's always somebody on there chatting. And just offering that, we're really focused on that local community. Having a region gives you a local connection of a small group in a big club.
Awesome.
Yeah, one of the things, now speaking from the park side, and maybe you're a smaller park and not real familiar with ACE, but I always thought one of the advantages to having ACE come out and, doing some kind of an event, maybe a one-day event at your park, and sometimes the park will look at, it's only going to be like 110, 120 people. But it's so worth it because you're sending, if it is 110 people, 110 sales reps out in the street talking about your park. and how much fun they had. So when they go back to work, they're talking to their friends, they're talking to their family, that they just made this trip there. And, that word of mouth, I think that is so valuable.
I agree with you. You're exactly right that we're the salespeople. We want to tell everybody about what cool parks we visited and what we got to experience there. And it's not just about the roller coasters in the park. We want to talk about the whole experience. Yes, we love the roller coasters, but it's also what are the really cool flat rides, what you need, we're all about the food. Yeah. What good food did I have? I love some good amusement park food. So, it's just, we want to share that whole experience. But I think most of all, when we go back, it's about telling them what great memories we made. And really just encouraging people to get out to a park and have some good, wholesome American fun. Overseas fun, European fun, it's perfect for the whole world. It's just good, wholesome fun.
All right, Elizabeth, so someone's watching at home, they're interested in coasters, they want to learn more. What do?
They go to ridewithace.com and they click join right there on the front page and join all the fun with us. It's only $35 to be our associate member, or $50 if you want our publications. So something that can easily work into the budget, and we have family discounts too.
Awesome. That'll be linked in the description, of course. Just do the 50. You want the publications, trust me. So
you want those, yeah.
Awesome. Any final thoughts, Don or Elizabeth, before we?
Just a great organization. I've been familiar with them for the past 42 years now. And, just some wonderful people, lifetime friendships, definitely worth looking into if you're interested in the industry.
Awesome.
And just have fun.
Awesome. And Elizabeth, we've been hopefully we'll have you on the full-blown show. It's about an hour or so, and we'll talk more about ACE, more in depth, more about your experience and so on. But again, aceonline.org if you're interested in more information, and I think that's your Twitter handle as well.
We're Ride with Ace. It is our Twitter handle. Yeah, correct.
Aceonline.org.
Yes.
Ride with Ace is the Twitter handle. Yes. Okay, I'm glad we cleared that up. That will be linked in the description, I promise. Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And enjoy the rest of the show, all right?
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I enjoyed it. And, enjoy the show, y'all. Enjoy such great exploring.
Awesome.
Right, enjoy the rest of the week.
Yeah, it was great meeting Elizabeth Ringus. She was really, really nice. Very, mom and friend. And I really liked her. But you know what? That she's not the only ACE, shall we say, legend. She's a future legend. Richard Munch, who founded ACE. He's the OG, the original. He's a founder of ACE. He sat down and talked to us, but he's not here for ACE necessarily. He's here for ACE's National Roller Coaster Museum, which is going to be opening in the next 18 months or so. And this is what he had to say about that.
It's day 2 of IAAPA, and we're excited to be joined right now by Richard Munch. Richard is the founder of the American Coaster Enthusiasts. We talked about them a little bit earlier today. Richard, talk about how that came to be.
Well, there was a film called Roller Coaster. I got involved with the production, site production, and we, in effect, Universal had a marathon at King's Dominion, and I met 2 other gentlemen. We got together, and over French fries, we discussed science fiction conventions. And they said, why don't we do a roller coaster convention? So we ended up doing the very first convention at Busch Gardens in Williamsburg. They opened the Loch Ness Monster. We had our ERT, exclusive ride time, for 1 hour, and there was about 50 people showed up. So that was the first convention. At that point, we established the American Coaster Enthusiasts. That was the name chosen. And it's moved on from there. It's almost 50 years.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just amazing how that club has grown. And again,
and there's a lot of people involved with keeping that going.
Right.
A lot of people.
So I've got to ask, so you were the original member of ACE. You're essentially the founder of ACE. You've served as the historian for ACE, right?
I was the president, I was a historian, and then I moved on to, this is a separate entity now, the National Roller Coaster Museum.
Okay, and we will absolutely get to that. But let me ask you this. You're the absolute best person to ask this to. Your favorite roller coaster of all time.
Jesus.
So hard to choose, isn't it?
That's a hard question. It's always a hard question. Of all time, probably the Cyclone. The Beastie's in there. I love Boulder Dash. I liked. There's so many. It's hard to pick the one I would.
It's like
but
I
grew up with the Cyclone. I spent a lot of time at the Cyclone. I got to know them operations, so I really had a good time there. The Cyclone has changed. It's not as doesn't have that deep drop it used to have, but it's okay. People love it. But I love I do like wood coasters, and there's some steel coasters I really like. The Beast is very dear to me. Because I mean, that coaster opened basically when Ace was started.
Yeah.
So it's got the same almost history. So I hope nothing ever happens to it.
All right, you mentioned now you're involved with the National Roller Coaster Museum. Talk about that, and what's all happening on that front.
Well, we started. Jeff Novotny from Larson International. He took over at one point, and he said that he's got some land available for us in Plainview next to his factory. He would give it to us for nothing. We would have no issue with ownership or anything. We started to build these buildings, and one thing after another, we built one building, another building, and we ended up with this complex. And it's over 2,000 square feet. I'm sorry, over 20,000 square feet. The first building was 2,000, and then we went from there, and it's a work in progress.
Well, any museum is, right? So the National Roller Coaster Museum, anybody can visit that, or is that just an Ace thing? Or
no, it's not open yet. We're finalizing now exhibits, and we're going to build some exhibits. We're trying to open it in the next 18 months.
Okay.
Give or take.
And again, what city is that in?
Plainview, Texas.
Next to the Larson factory.
Next to Larson International, yeah.
2 stops for the price of 1, the Larson factory and the National.
Yeah, they probably will give you a tour. I would think they would. We're excited about it. I mean, we've got a very large collection of stuff.
Yeah, I've seen the different things coming in, the different pictures and that
And
they
it
get
keeps
shared.
coming.
And
This keeps coming.
you look at something like this here at IAAPA, and just the number of like amusement park fans and that come down here, and just they're mesmerized by all the things they see on the show floor. But just the history and everything that you're going to have in there, I think it's definitely going to be something that's going to attract a lot of attention once it does open.
We hope it does. That's all we can hope for. We know the location is a little bit off the beaten path, but it's the only offer we had, and it's it's like a free-form thing. It just keeps growing and growing, and we're very excited about it. I think the initial response is going to be very good, because there's a lot. It's like a candy store for roller coaster addicts.
Yeah.
How many items would you say you have right now that are stored there?
That's a good question. Paper-wise, it's probably 100,000 items. We have well over 60 cars. We have track from several roller coaster pieces of track from coasters that have been torn down. We have the only piece of the Texas Cyclone that's left. We have a car from the Cyclone in New York. We have a Matterhorn car from Disneyland. So we have some really very special things, and now is the opportunity to exhibit it properly, so that when you walk into, like any museum, you walk in and it's a transition. You go from piece to piece, and you learn about the industry, and you learn about roller coasters.
So, obviously, what you're doing as far as the museum and the education piece of the history is very, very important for any subject matter. So thank you for doing that. But I have to ask you, have you had the opportunity to walk the floor at IAAPA 2022? And if so, what's some of the roller coaster technology that's blown you away this year?
I haven't had the opportunity as much as you think I have. I didn't really see that much so far. I figured tomorrow I'll spend more time walking the floor. But no, I think the technology, safety has become a very important thing. A lot of the coasters today do a lot of things that 20 years ago we weren't doing, and so now, safety, keeping the person safe so that they can't fall out, they can't get hurt. And you're seeing the fact that nobody's really getting hurt. You don't see too many accidents. And I think that's the tallest man in Connecticut, by the way. So, he is. So, anyway, I don't know if I answered your question, but...
You did. No, I really like that. Obviously, safety is very important. Technology changes throughout the years. This year, for example, I'm sure you're aware of, SeaWorld Surf Coaster.
Right.
That's something that, it's taking an old ride concept, a stand-up ride, which is kind of fallen out of favor, putting a new twist on it, and now everyone's excited about it. So I think that's really cool.
I mean, in essence, it's a gimmick, but the point is, if it's successful, it's a great gimmick. I don't know what's going to do. I mean, I guess you're going up and down, but I mean, I'm looking at a lot of the stuff today, and some of it blows me away. It's just like, wow.
Yeah.
This has come so, like you said, 20 years. It's come so far.
Absolutely.
Now, when you first got interested in roller coaster, you mentioned the Cyclone and that, and you're seeing, about at that time that was tall. That was a big first drop of those kind of things. So you think back to then, and then what you see now, where you got coasters and they've got 300, 330, 340 foot drops. They're reaching speeds, 90 plus and everything like that. Do you ever think you'd see something like that?
Yes and no. I heard most designers at the time said we'll never go over 100 feet, and then they went to 125, and then 150, and then over 200, and then now we're 300, and who knows where. Yeah, it was a progression, it was a development, and it kept moving forward. I'm very happy with it. I don't know if it's really necessary. The Beast doesn't have that kind of height, and it's a great ride.
Right.
Other rides are too tall, and they have so much energy when they come into the station. You would like it to go another couple thousand feet.
Yeah.
So
I can see that.
the technology. It depends on what the clients want. So
Awesome. Well, Richard, it was really an honor to have you on here. We'd love to have you on a full episode sometime. You interested in doing that?
Sure.
A full hour over Skype?
Sure.
That'd be great.
Talk to Richard, and as always great chatting with you. Great
Okay.
seeing you. And
Good to see you.
Richard and I go back a long way. We both had hair when we first met each other.
It's not
Right.
true.
You're
Not
right.
true.
You're
All
right.
right. Well, thank you once again, Richard. We will definitely be in contact.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the show. It's a great show this
Okay.
year.
Thank you.
And another individual that we enjoyed speaking with today is Scott Boyles. He is with RMC, and we had a chance to talk to him about designing coasters for RMC, but also about the new Wildcat Revenge train that was unveiled this week at IAAPA. And we are with Scott Boyles. He's a designer with RMC. Scott, what do you design?
Well, roller coasters, big, fast roller coasters. I'm a structural designer, so I detail out lots of little parts and pieces. Anything between the track and the foundations, my responsibility, making all the fab drawings, and then all the installation drawings, construction drawings, getting all that shipped to site and installed in the right spot. And
Sounds like a lot
my
involved
job.
there.
Yep.
Yeah, it seems like RMC has really taken the industry by storm. They're actually rebirthing a bunch of old wooden coasters. I've always been curious. So when you're dealing with an existing structure, like let's say Wildcat at Hershey Park, what does it take to actually use that structure and then create a new structure that's safe, sound, efficient, and not completely tearing it out?
Yeah, so there are definitely some complications. The first thing is just the size of the ride.
Mm-hmm.
If it's say a medium-sized ride, maybe like a Wicked Cyclone or a Joker, it's a little bit easier. The loads on the structure are quite a bit less, so it makes it a little bit easier to use the existing structure. For something like your Still Vengeance or especially like an Iron Gwazi, or even like Hershey Park is going to have some of the same complications because we are going taller, we're going faster. We end up having to pour a lot of new foundations to help out the ride. But we are trying to use as much of the existing structure as possible. That's always been the idea. It helps keep the cost low. But you don't know really until you get onto the job site what the condition of the wood is. Sometimes you end up removing a lot more than you anticipated just because the quality of the existing wood isn't up to par. But with these big, fast rides, the loads on the structure is just very large, so it does kind of complicate the engineering and the design. And you'll see a lot of like steel pipe batters on this structure to help with like wind loading, and it's just a really efficient way to get load to the ground without adding a bunch of new wood structure.
Well, Scott, as you're designing roller coasters for RMC, do you prefer the ground floor up where you get to start from scratch, or taking an existing structure and then trying to see if you can make magic with it?
I would say personally, I like the design problems that we see in remodeling an existing ride. And I think even the engineers that are doing the ride layout for us prefer something along that line as well. I mean, if you're going from ground up, it's such a blank slate. You don't really know what to do exactly. If you have an existing ride, there's already like some parameters to work with, and it starts to suggest some of the stuff that could happen. It suggests some potential as you're designing. So I think it really helps kind of the creativity, having something to work with, having some of those constraints. Whereas a blank slate, it's like you almost don't know where to start. There's nothing to work with.
So one of the most anticipated rides coming to the industry in the coming months is going to be Air Force One at Fun Spot Atlanta. Can you talk a little bit about that project?
Sure. So that one is a ground up. It's going to be a steel structure, angle iron, frame similar to our wood structures, but it's all steel. One of our large steel lift trusses. It's got a big Raven turn and stall for those first elements, and then lots of airtime hills, and even kind of a unique little jump over their arcade onto that backside. So some kind of unique elements that we haven't done before, and I think it's going to be a sort of a great banner for the park, just being like right there on the highway. It's going to be very iconic, visible. So it's going to be a good ride. Awesome.
You know, yesterday, the unveil of the Wildcat Revenge coaster, it's going to be at Hershey Park. Talk about this. I mean, this is amazing. Just the detail, and that's going to be a great visual for photos and video and everything that's coming down the drops and around the turns and that. Talk about this.
Sure. So we've gotten a lot of compliments on the artistic portion of the train. I think they did a really good job with the theming, and the gentleman that does the actual like fiberglass work with us, I think executed very well. I think everybody's really happy with it. I did the unveiling on Tuesday, first day of the show. Had a really good turnout for that. I think everybody's excited for the ride. This is going to be another steel lift truss. It's got a underflip element, which is one of my personal favorite elements, so I'm excited for that. And it's actually the world's largest underflip, but it's a really tight site for the most part, and it's just going to create a lot of like interesting pass-throughs through the structure. It's going to be another just intense fast ride.
Yeah, it looks great.
Thank you.
So I'm not sure if you can directly speak to this, and obviously every situation is different, but generally speaking, if a park is exploring either converting an old wood coaster to a hybrid or building ground up, is there a cost advantage to either one?
I wish I knew the numbers a little bit more. I'd say there's definitely some advantages. There's some pros and cons to both. I mean, obviously, if we can reutilize a bunch of the existing structure, that's going to save some money. There's a lot less foundations to pour if they're already existing. So just some of like the volume of work, obviously, there's a little bit less if you're doing a remodel versus a ground up. But there's some ambiguity, I guess, in doing a remodel. Like I said, you're not exactly sure if the wood's in good condition. So I may have detailed some of the structure to be one way. They decide they can't use it, and now I've got to go back and remake drawings. So you've got to kind of be on your toes for a remodel. Where if it's a ground up, I know what to expect. I know where the foundations are going to end up. I know what the structure is going to be. I can do it once. It's going to be done, and I know it's going to be right. So
you mentioned a couple times that you generally make, I guess, well, let's call them assumptions as to what wood you can use and what wood you can't. So walk us through that process. Is that something like your engineers, your field engineers get on site and then they look at something and they're like, okay, this is not going to cut it. They send it back to the drawing board, back to you. Is that how that works?
So the structure, when we very first start, we're going to define sort of where we think the existing structure will stop and where the new one will begin. And that structure will get analyzed in that manner. When our construction crews show up onto the job site and they actually start sawing the lumber, they're going to make a judgment call of whether or not that lumber is good. And they're going to report back to us, say, hey, we got to tear all this out. And that's not a problem from engineering, because the way that we would detail out that structure is a lot stronger than what is existing anyway. So it's not necessarily a problem from an engineering standpoint. It's really just the cost of the new lumber.
You know, Scott, if I'm at a park and I come to you, and let's say I've got a wood coaster, it's about 3,800 feet long, and I say we want to do this conversion. From the time that you get approached to the ride being completed with the construction, what is that turnaround time?
I'd say maybe just over a year. A lot of times what happens is the parks are kind of waiting to see what their budgets are going to be for the year and whether or not they can take on a project. If they've already reached out to us and we have a proposal and we can just move on it, it's going to be pretty quick. But generally, let's say I'll go out and survey in the spring for a ride, hand that to engineering. They'll do the ride layout, the structural analysis. We're going to start fabricating probably middle of the summer. So that process maybe takes a couple of months to do the engineering. We'll be designing for about 4 months, fabricating until about January, and I mean they always want the ride open in the spring, so it's kind of a spring to spring rotation. It really just kind of depends on where they've reached out to us, when they reached out to us, and how many iterations of the proposal we go through.
Okay.
Scott, one of the biggest things that RMC has announced, and everyone always talks about it, everyone always speculates about, is the T-Rex.
Yep.
So my question for you, if you can answer, is where are you guys in that project? Are you looking for a buyer at this point, or is it still being engineered? Is it still a concept? Like, where does it sit right now?
I think we want to have the right interest in that. So if a client comes to us and expresses some interest in doing, say, a 300-foot tall coaster or something like that, I think that's where that track would come in. Right now, the remodels and the Raptor tracks are doing real well for us, so we haven't necessarily spent the time to develop the T-Rex past sort of a concept. But if we had the right interest in it, we would absolutely start developing the new trains, the track, the structural system, and start adding some more detail to that. Yeah.
Is the track generally based off of the single rail track?
For the T-Rex, yeah, it's going to be a single rail. It's going to be similar to the Raptor, just large.
Awesome.
So,
and it seats two across, right?
I don't know if that's necessarily been defined yet. I think it could be many different things. Yeah.
That's why we ask these questions, because we make assumptions that are not correct sometimes. But that's really cool. Yeah, that's been a really exciting thing, and I think that you will have the right biter, shall we say, at the right time. So generally speaking, though, your goal with that is to have the taller, faster kind of situation. You want to have the Giga, the tall Hyper, that kind of thing. Am I correct with that, or are there other elements that are unique to the T-Rex track?
I would imagine that it would be able to do some of the same things that these other rides do. We are changing the center of gravity, so the ride dynamics potentially are going to be different, and then just depending on what we feel is going to be the best design for the train, whether are we doing side by side, are we doing 4 across, are we doing 6 cars, 10 cars? I mean, none of that's really been defined, but a lot of that changes the ride experience and what you're able to do. So we'll kind of see what happens, I guess, with the T-Rex.
Awesome.
A lot of potential still.
All right. Well, Scott, thanks for your time. RMC.
Absolutely.
Where can they find you on the website and social media?
I should know this. RockyMTNConstruction.com is the website. If you guys see anything at the show, our hashtag is RMCit.
RMC it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So anyone in the industry, make sure you reach out to Rocky Mountain Construction. You know who they are. You know what they do. Who's out there? Who's going to bite on that T-Rex? Who's going to top Air Force One? Who's going to have the next great conversion? All great questions, which will probably be answered in the next few years. But Scott, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you,
Scott.
Thank you.
Well, Don, day 2 is pretty much in the books now. So, do you have any final thoughts or anything going through your head at this point, halfway through our journey?
You know, what I thought about today was, we wish there was more than a couple days left of this convention that, we keep talking about a lot of things to see and do and so many people to meet and talk with that have a lot of interesting products out there. We wish we had more time to talk to everybody, but, we don't. But that's really my biggest takeaway is just how many things there are here. And, you only have so much time. So we're trying to get to the ones that we think are going to be the most interest to you, our audience.
Absolutely. So everybody stay tuned. We still have our last day on the IAAPA floor, and then we'll have a little bit of fun at the parks. We'll share some information with that. But some great interviews lined up for tomorrow, people you're going to want to hear from. So make sure you're following the Attractions Group podcast on YouTube and search for the Attractions Group podcast on your favorite podcast app. Great way to go. Oh, and yeah, Twitter, @attractions_GRP. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that.
That's right.
Everybody, good night. We will have more content for you tomorrow.